everybody. Welcome back to the Film Buds podcast. This is episode number 153. And my name is Henry.
And I'm Paul.
And here with us after a little hiatus is our friend Jacob Bowers.
Hi there.
Jacob, it's great to see you, man.
Yeah, it's good.
We can see you this time as opposed to the last time you were here.
Yeah.
Well, this week we have Jacob left. So this week we have a review of David Fincher's Mank, currently on Netflix. And then we also have a listener question concerning Passion Project, which of course Mank is a passion project for David Fincher. And so we'll either do that in the review or perhaps right afterwards. And, picks of the week, who knows what else could come along. Thanks for joining us once again. Guys, how you doing? It's great to see you.
Yeah, great to be here. I'm doing pretty well. I finished watching Mank today. I also watched Citizen Kane again today as well. So I'm feeling pretty good. Honestly, it was a good day for a double feature.
Yeah. Jacob, how about you, man? We haven't seen you for a couple weeks.
Yeah. I also watched Mank today. And just been still just working and staying at home. And, splitting my time between watching movies, working, playing video games, sleeping.
Sure.
The things that you do when you can't go anywhere.
Yeah. Well, cool. Paul, anything else going on with you, man, or just same old?
No, pretty much same old, watching stuff for this, working at the other podcast, Sane Show. No, I guess it's been honestly pretty uneventful for like a little bit now, which is kind of nice. Yeah, just plugging away. I recently watched the re-edit of The Godfather Part 3.
Right.
Yeah. So, it's been pretty quiet.
Yeah.
Did you change up where you're positioned in your room?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm on a different side of the table.
Yeah, I was noticing that. I was like, hold on, his background is different.
Yeah, I got a Revenant poster back there. The whole deal.
Mm-hmm. The lava lamp, that's my favorite.
Yes, the broken lava lamp that's been there for about 2 years.
No, tragic.
Yes. Yeah. Purely decorative at this point. So, yeah. Well, guys, not too much else to mention, really. Do you want to get to it?
Yeah, sure.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, let's get into our review of Mank on Netflix, as we said. And we do have a clip this time, so take a listen.
Mank, it's Orson Welles.
Of course it is.
I think it's time we talk.
What is it the writer says? Tell the story you know.
Hello, everyone.
Make yourself to home, Mr. Mankiewicz, or shall I call you Herman?
Please, call me Mank.
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 This is Herman Mankiewicz, but we're to call him Mank.
Mankiewicz. Herman Mankiewicz, New York playwright and drama critic. Turned humble screenwriter, Mr. Hearst.
This is a business where the buyer gets nothing for his money but a memory. What he bought still belongs to the man who sold it.
All right. Well, Mank is directed by David Fincher. It stars Gary Oldman, Amanda Seyfried, Lily Collins, Tom Pelphrey, Arliss Howard, Tuppence Middleton, Monica Gossman, Charles Dance, many others, I think. Am I missing anybody big?
No, it's a regular who's who of who's that.
Yes. And the synopsis is 1930s Hollywood is reevaluated through the eyes of scathing social critic and alcoholic screenwriter Herman J. Mankiewicz as he races to finish the screenplay of Citizen Kane, parentheses, 1941. So this one has been, as we said, it's passion project for David Fincher.
Mhm.
And it was always meant to be a Netflix movie. It's not one that was, scheduled for theaters and then got moved to Netflix. Jacob, you got a cat there. That's cool.
Yep.
And yeah, well, guys, who wants to kick things off?
As always, I say that we go ahead with Jacob.
Jacob?
Oh, well, I was going to say we should go ahead with Paul.
Okay. Well, you know what? Why not?
You guys.
So, I'll take it. So, first off, I really enjoyed it. I thought that it was great. I very much enjoyed watching it. He really nailed the sort of visual aesthetic of watching an older film, with a few exceptions of like some shots that I was like, that's not right. That's a modern camera move. But with few exceptions, I thought that he nailed the visual look. I very much enjoyed it. I thought that it had a good message. I thought that it was well acted. I thought that, it was typical David Fincher doing what David Fincher does best, which is ultimately, at the end of the day, still doing an examination of sociopathy, and the psychopathic mind in a way, because I think that even though he was doing it from the sort of perspective of Mank, who was psychotically destroying himself, while critiquing a man who was sort of psychotically destroying the world, I guess, as far as he was concerned. But I thought that it was really well done. Do I think that it's one that will be remembered beyond like film people who love film? I don't know. But I think that it'll be remembered because David Fincher did it, and David Fincher will be remembered.
Well, now, how does this rank up with other Fincher films?
Honestly, for me, pretty high, but maybe that's just because I just really enjoyed my day surrounding, I guess, my watching of Mank and my watching of Citizen Kane, and kind of, doing a dive into research on William Randolph Hearst and Mankiewicz and that kind of thing. So maybe I'm just a little bit colored by my research dive, but I very much enjoyed it. And I think that as far as especially his films that like aren't about direct murderers, this is definitely one of the better ones.
Sure. Jacob, my friend, what about you?
Yeah, like I said, I also watched it today. I had heard the name of the movie a couple of times over the past year, I guess, or I knew absolutely nothing about it. For some reason, up until today, when I looked up where I could watch it, I thought it was a Ben Wheatley movie. I don't know why. Because I know he's got something coming, and I was like, oh, this must be that Ben Wheatley movie. And I was like, oh, it's David Fincher movie. I didn't know he was making a new movie. So I found that out. I also had no idea what it was about. And I was a little bit into it before I realized what it was about. And then I sort of paused and looked a few things up just for some background. And I was like, oh, this is a movie about the screenwriter of Citizen Kane. I was like, that sort of can contextualize it a little bit more for me. And then I went and finished the movie. It's I think David Fincher kind of has this ability to make you care about whatever he puts in front of you. So even when it felt dry or like maybe meandering a little bit, I was still like, like David Fincher is still making me care about what I'm seeing, and I'm still sort of magnetized to the screen, because I just think, like, I don't think there's a David Fincher movie I've seen that I've not enjoyed. There are certainly ones that are better than others, but I think he's just a master at saying, take this, box on a table, and I'm going to film it in such a way and give it a certain emotion that you're going to care about something that's happening. And, I think that was sort of the case here, that you kind of had to, it wasn't like a exciting action movie or anything. It was like a psychological profile, and you kind of have to be in the right mood to watch that, and you kind of have to be willing to exercise your brain when you're watching a movie like that. And I kind of felt like, the exact opposite of the last movie we all reviewed together. I had to sit there and think about what I was watching. instead
what
of just
did we
letting
review
it
together?
pass over me. Happiest season.
Happy season.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah. And of course, Gary Oldman, I love him. Amanda Seyfried was really good in this. I liked the black and white. Wasn't quite as good as, going to a theater and seeing it in black and white. Netflix kind of has that fake looking black and white.
Yeah.
But it's always good to see a black and white movie. And yeah, nothing but good things to say about Fincher's direction. But yeah, that's pretty much encapsulates my opinion for now. I'll let you take it away, Henry, and then if I have, something to add, I'll add it.
All right. Yeah, well, as I've said on the show before, David Fincher is my favorite director, and so I was looking forward to this, especially since this was his first movie since Gone Girl. He had done Mindhunter, but this was, it had been a bit of a break from movies, and so I was definitely excited, but also when I heard about it, I thought of all the David Fincher stories that he could tell. I didn't get much interest from this one, or I didn't think that's the one I would choose for him. I mean, I would like to see the Dragon Tattoo sequel first, but that's whatever.
Never going to happen. That's what that is.
I know. I mean, we were going to get the whole trilogy, but anyways, different discussion. And so I think, as you guys were saying, I think the craft of it is undeniably great. It's so well directed. It looks incredible. The score by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross is amazing. One of their best. The acting, Jacob, as you said, very good. Although I do find that I think, and it seems to be a fairly general consensus, but I just did not think there was a whole lot of heart in it. I get that it's a passion project, and we can maybe get to this later on, but it seems like oftentimes a passion project for a director won't always come through and hit the same way for an audience as it does for them. And so that was my main issue with it. And I do find that if I had to say, it's probably my least favorite David Fincher movie since Benjamin Button. I would give Social Network, Dragon Tattoo, Zodiac, and Gone Girl 5s or 4.5s. And I mean, I still like this one a fair bit, but it's probably the least effective for me from him in a while. But it's it's so detailed, like the sound design, even like how people speak, the kind of scratchy echo, like harkens back to, 1940s, 1950s films. It is, just like the meticulous lighting. Like there's a scene maybe 30 minutes in where there's this auditorium, like seating shot of people sitting, and every single person in every single position is so meticulous and it looks amazing. And so even things like that was just amazing to see, because that's not a skill that comes out very often. But no, I overall I liked it, but I think it's lesser Fincher for me.
Well, I guess this is kind of a rare case where I get to be a little bit effusive comparatively. Please. Yeah. So, I didn't just do a little bit of research. So I cracked out my old film history textbook written by the professor of the class, David A. Cook. This is the 4th edition. There's a 5th edition out. This bad boy's around 1,100 pages. Whew. And there is an entire chapter dedicated just to Citizen Kane. So I cracked out this bad boy. I cracked out my history of the Coens thing. I went deep. Like, I had an absolute blast.
That's good.
And I think that the heart of the film is in kind of almost the same kind of journey as a Kane figure, right? It's a journey almost downward. And it has this almost happy-ish kind of ending, but much like William Randolph Hearst, much like Orson Welles, much like Mankiewicz himself, it's a journey down. After a lot of early success and a lot of people thinking that great things were going to come, ultimately nothing came from that life, and it was crushed by the machinations of men, of people. And ultimately, I think it's also meant to be a cautionary tale, right? Because at the core of the film, it's a message about the modern studio system and about its connection to politics and about its connection to power in a very real way. And so I think that maybe it might not have the kind of instant, fascinating, charismatic pull of Jesse Eisenberg in something like A Social Network, or the perpetual mystery of a Zodiac. Instead, you really, I think, have to, for this film, you have to dig deep. You have to be steeped kind of in a lot of knowledge. But that does bring around a point of criticism of the film, which is that I just pulled out a massive fucking textbook and another textbook, and I watched a second film, and I looked things up online, and that ended up creating this incredible kind of narrative journey across the lives of multiple men in real life and in fiction. And then I was really enjoying the whole thing. And don't get me wrong, I liked the movie beforehand, but it wasn't until I felt really like I had a good grip on the history that I felt like I really loved the movie. And that is a fatal flaw of the film.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree with that totally. There are so many, so many people injected into the movie, and so many characters and so many different locations that harken back to, that film and classic Hollywood, which I love most of the time. However, watching it in one sitting, it wasn't enough to keep me captivated, whereas there are other Fincher films like, Dragon Tattoo, Social Network, Zodiac, that whether it was the world or the character, it had me much more engaged right from the beginning. And I think for whatever reason, it didn't do that with Mank. And also I'll say, I think while I get COVID and everything, I think having it released on Netflix was the worst choice. This should have been a theater movie. I would have happily waited another year to see this if I got to see it in a theater instead. Like the sound design, the world itself, I think I would have enjoyed it so much more if I got to see it on a big screen. But of course, that's a purely personal thing. But no, I agree with you totally, Paul. Jacob, any counterpoints?
I generally find passion projects to be a lot like jazz. Like they tend to be films that are made by directors for other directors or other people that have a background knowledge to sort of care about, what's happening. Not everyone has seen Citizen Kane. Not everyone knows why that movie is important. No, not everyone knows what that movie means to film culture and film history and what it has led to, and how if we didn't have that movie, there'd be so many things that we don't have. People that are film history buffs, people that are, learning to become a director or a writer, people that are sort of like entrenched in that world, they're probably going to enjoy a director's passion project more than the casual viewer. And it's like Paul said, taking all this time to be enriched by the history behind the film leads to a more enjoyable experience. That's obviously not something every single viewer is going to think to do or have the time to do. And I think, that's where the problems for passion projects come in. And that's why I think passion projects a lot of the time wind up maybe not making as much money as a director's other films, or not many people are going to see it, but that's okay. Like David Fincher got this out. He wanted to do it. I'm sure he doesn't care if this doesn't become as profitable or as amazing or as beloved as his other movies, because it's something he is passionate about. And that's kind of the core of what I was seeing here is that a movie like this is made for people like us. It's not made for, my sister or my mother or someone that just doesn't really think along the same lines as people like us do.
No, for sure.
Oh, no, go ahead, Paul.
I watched it with Lauren, my wife, and she has never seen Citizen Kane. She doesn't know movie history the way that we know movie history. And so, like, it wasn't until she and I sort of sat down and really started getting into it that she was like, oh, okay, now this more makes sense. And, like, she was still invested in the journey. She still thought that the characters were interesting, that the narrative was engaging. But most of the stuff about, like, what he was writing, what he was doing was completely going over her head because, ultimately this movie is kind of talking about, the guy who's writing Facebook. But the problem is no one, as Jacob, pointed out, knows that Citizen Kane is the fucking Facebook of modern cinema.
Sure.
And no one knows that, Mankiewicz, before he did Citizen Kane, was also one of the many ghostwriters of Wizard of Oz. So, no, that's absolutely, it's a good point. But from an outsider perspective, I will say this, at least Fincher did do a good enough job of, I guess, writing the dialogue and staging the scenes well enough that even someone who had a baseline of 0 was able to be like, this is interesting. I don't know why I should care, but I am interested.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that brings me back to the point I made about David Fincher just having this unique ability to make anyone care about anything.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
and I agree with that totally. I there were scenes that I was like, it was so immersive, and I was just so amazed by the amount of detail and I guess the homages and callbacks to that world. And coming from Fincher, I know he cares about it so much, and I know he's so knowledgeable. It's just that there were scenes like that would be incredible, and then the next, I would find myself kind of phasing out a little bit, and so it was a little inconsistent for me in that way. However, even all that negative stuff aside, like Gary Oldman, incredible. I mean, the whole cast really is solid, and in terms of how David Fincher is able to handle a lot of information, there are scenes where, there's probably maybe 10, 12 people talking to each other in different ways, one person to another, sometimes a few people at once, and how he handles that through writing and editing is incredible. And it's just a master of control that very few other directors have, and that he's able to do very well. Like in Zodiac, there's so much information being thrown at you, but you really almost never feel overwhelmed by it. And it's the same thing with The Social Network. Like, those montages of like 5 or 6 different storylines going at once, you understand it totally. And so I think he carries that into this movie as well. It's just that, other things I've already said, hurt it a little bit.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Ultimately, I really, really enjoy it. I think that it still fits into his ultimate, filmography, which is, a lot of stories of psychopaths, of sociopaths, but more importantly, of a lot of damaged men, of a lot of bad fathers. And I think that if you really dig deep into this film, it has a really solid cautionary tale kind of message, not unlike Social Network. But it is a little isolating, and that is probably its greatest weakness. But ultimately, I quite like it. It's a story not unlike most of what Orson Welles wrote about, which again, is pretty much all of his films are downward story arcs. Macbeth, Touch of Evil, The Lady from Shanghai. Like, all of his films are all, about people who attain something and then lose it and squander it and fail and fall apart and are unmade by their mistakes. And so I think that in a weird way he did, an almost, I'm sure that this is something Jeff Adams would love.
Yes.
And for that reason, it is a little bit of a problem for the general public.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, and there are other films in this territory, like Hail Caesar is, not totally the same thing, but I love that film, and maybe that's more so just because it's a light comedy, whereas this one is more serious. But as we've said, I mean, the film history aspect of it is fascinating, and I think that on rewatch it will go up because of that. Because you know you're the more like basically what you put into it is what you're going to get from it, you know? And so if you do the research, you will get more out of it. Whereas if it's just a casual viewing, probably not going to like it that much, as the majority of people that I've talked to who have seen it have told me.
No, absolutely.
Guys, anything else big about it?
Watch it with Citizen Kane if you can. I mean, I know that that's like a really big thing, but like, you know, it's like 4 hours of your day. But if
once.
if you have the time by happenstance, I'd watch both of them together, almost kind of like watching Apocalypse Now with Hearts of Darkness. You know, I think that it's, or another good example would be watching Nosferatu with Shadow of the Vampire. Great, you know, sort of two stories that inform each other really, really well and create an interesting narrative of two different generations of filmmaking as well.
Yeah. And one more time, the Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross score is so good. Like it shows that they can do more than just eerie, like ambient electronic sounds. Like it's a fantastic score.
Yeah.
Jacob, anything else for you, man? How does this rank for you with Fincher?
It's probably somewhere in the middle if I'm looking at his entire filmography.
Yeah. Are you generally a fan of his films? Like, I mean, do you like them more often than not?
Yeah, he's up there. He's one of my favorites. There's only one movie I haven't seen, and it's Gone Girl, and I've been meaning to get around to it for the longest time, but I just haven't. But I even have it on Blu-ray around here somewhere. Just need to watch it.
Nice. All right, Paul. Any last things for you?
No, I think I'm all right. Do we want to rate this bad boy?
Let's do it.
All right. Jacob, since I started with my opinions, why don't you take it away with your ranking or your grade?
Well, I don't know. This one was actually kind of tricky. Normally, by the end of a movie, I don't have to think about it that much. I'm just like, there's the rating. But for this, I had to put a fair bit of thought into it. And I think I came to a 4.5 out of 5. Because I think I enjoyed it enough for it to be that high. But it wasn't like an instant 5 for me or anything. But it also was like, even when I was like, maybe I want to rate this a 3. I mean, like, it was crafted so highly, and it was, such a good movie for someone who's invested in the history and the, what it's actually talking about, that I was like, I gotta put it up there, just for me personally. So yeah, 4.5.
Yeah, this is better than Scoob for sure.
Yeah.
Paul?
Honestly, yeah, I'm gonna go 4.5 for me. 4 for someone who may not know what's going on, but is just willing to try. And it's honestly probably like a hard 2 for anyone who just doesn't know anything and just kind of puts this on for the fuck of it. Like, yes.
Yeah.
But for me, it's an honest 4.5.
All right, I'll go light 4. Yeah, could go up or down on rewatch. Who knows?
Well, whatever. You like Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. So.
I do. It's one of my favorites.
Are we not all fans of Girl with the Dragon Tattoo here?
No? Oh, Paul. We'll have to get to that sometime.
That's for another day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, and the thing is, I think in terms of like the viewership, I don't think it was ever on the top 10 of Netflix. Like I was thinking it would be like, because it was Fincher, that it would be there, but it never, I don't think it ever got there.
Yeah, I don't think it did.
Been out even.
It's only been out a couple weeks, but who knows?
Okay.
But I mean, for God's sakes, you can sneeze and end up on the top 10 of Netflix. So the fact that Mank hasn't even crept up there with Gary Oldman being attached tells you a lot.
Yeah, I think I was looking at their Twitter the other day, and they were putting out their top 10, and I know like The Queen's Gambit was on there, which by the way is fucking phenomenal.
Oh yeah,
everyone should watch it. But I also saw that like some kids movie or something like some Brazilian kids movie, it's like Coco Melon or something, was like number 2. I was like, how does this even happen. So many parents out there just letting their kids, they put on some kids movie or something, and then it shoots up into the top 3 on Netflix. I guess.
Well, I think that Ava, or is it Ava, that Jessica Chastain movie, that spy film? I think that's number 1 right now somehow.
You know how?
Yeah. So yeah, well, cool. Well, with the review done, I guess we can get on to the listener question. Unless there's any big news pieces you guys want to touch on.
I guess the decision that Warner Bros. Made.
Oh yeah, we were talking about that last week with the theater. Yeah.
The HBO Max thing. Yeah.
It's going to be it's only getting more heated now. People are just, Denis Villeneuve came out. He was pissed.
Yeah.
I misread the title of the article, it was like sort of clickbaity or whatever. I thought it meant that they're taking their entire 2021 slate and releasing it on the same day on HBO Max and in theaters. And I was like, how's that going to work?
Oh, they are.
No, but because it's going to be.
No, he didn't understand that it was day and date with the theatrical release. He thought that they were taking the entirety of the year's catalog and dropping all of it on a single day.
Oh, I see. Yeah. No, let's do that.
Because there were so many articles
Honestly,
that made it seem like that was happening. They were phrased so weirdly, and I was like, because it was like Warner Bros. Is releasing all of their movies on HBO Max and theaters on the same day, and I was like, what?
Oh, I see.
Gotcha. So. But I understood in the end.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we can get to our listener question. So the Filmbuds podcast at gmail.com is where you can reach us at. Also Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Filmbuds, I think. Yeah, Filmbuds. Sounds right. And so, please, if you're a new listener or if you've been listening for a while, please send us any questions, comments, greetings. We love hearing from you out there. So this one comes from Mandy in Charleston. So not too far away from us.
Disappointing.
Yes. They say, hi, Henry and Paul. Sorry, Jacob. They mentioned you.
Fuck you, Jacob.
No. So, all right. So they say, with your review of Mank, do you find that most quote-unquote passion projects turn out well for audiences? I.e., Martin Scorsese's Silence, Vin Diesel's The Last Witch Hunter, basically the same film, Terry Gilliam's The Man Who Killed Don Quixote, etc. Love the podcast.
But wasn't The Irishman also like a passion project?
Yeah.
Yeah, right there.
More so The Last Witch Hunter, but...
I would say no. I think that, as I explained before, I think passion projects are either something that directors are making for other directors or something that they're just like, this is my thing. I don't care whether you like it or not. This is my thing. And, I feel like, what I just said, like The Irishman, I feel like that definitely happened with The Irishman, where Scorsese was like, I'm making a 4-hour movie, whatever, fuck it. Like, this is my thing. This is what I've been wanting to do for years. And then people were like, that's terrible. And then he was just like, well, here it is. I love it. And so I think no, I don't think passion projects generally have the audience in mind.
Sure.
But maybe
Paul?
One of you thinks differently.
I think that it's hard to. First off, every film should be a passion project, but that's beside the point. Second of all, no, every film that you're making should be something that you care about. If you don't care about it in some kind of way, that's the reason that it's crap, and then you're the reason to blame. But I think that there are incredible passion projects out there. Schindler's List is an incredible passion project of a film. Citizen Kane was, for all intents and purposes, a passion project. Malcolm X was a passion project. So I think that passion projects are just like ultimately any genre of film. They can work or they can't. It's ultimately dependent on what the topic is, and it is ultimately even more than the topic. It all boils down to execution. And so if you have all of the passion, but you just absolutely fucking do not cook that souffle correctly, it doesn't matter how passionate you were, it's going to be a shitty souffle. But if you're passionate as hell and you manage to nail it, then yeah, it's a great masterpiece and it's remembered as such.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And with like Martin Scorsese, like even more so than The Irishman, Silence, as Mandy mentioned, like that was something he had been trying to get made for, I don't know, 20, 30 years, something like that. And I agree. It, as with a lot of things like this, it does come down to execution. And some of it can just be with how people receive it, can be how long you've been around. You know, if it's someone who has made, 20 years of great films, I mean, go for it. Make the film you want to make. I mean, you've deserved it at that point. So I think sometimes in terms of how people receive it and how they view it, it is, I think, the level and respect you have in Hollywood or, wherever it is. And I think that's a big factor. I would say it's hard to judge how many passion projects have failed and how many others succeeded because, Paul, as you said, there are plenty of films that directors love that never get mentioned, and so it's kind of hard to say, no, that's not a passion project. I mean, obviously, everything Michael Bay does is a passion project.
But, and I guess it's also a question of what is a passion project, because, if it's just duration of time, well, Quentin Tarantino had the script for Inglourious Bastards back when he was working on Pulp Fiction. That's when he was churning out drafts of that one. So if it's just a question of time, well, that opens up the door, I'm sure, for any number of films that have just been stuck in development hell. So, I don't know. Passion is a vague question, and I think that passion should always be present in artistry because that's where artistry actually happens, is within passion and use of self and use of what to create something special.
Yeah. And
it's like...
Oh, no, go ahead, Jacob.
What you said, Henry, about like having a certain amount of prestige, sort of like allowing you to just, be like, go for it, make whatever you want. Don't think about the audience. Don't think about the money, just do your thing. I think it's hard to say how successful you would be if you were a director and you were putting out something like Mank or The Irishman as like your first movie ever. That would be, first of all, it'd be like, where did you get the money? But second of all, so it would be hard to say like how successful would you be with that? Because I mean, I haven't looked at any hard numbers. I don't know how successful something like Silence or The Irishman or Mank really was in terms of profitability or audience critique. But I definitely think being prestigious helps with getting those things made. Because when you're just starting out, you kind of have to make a name for yourself before you can really put something like that out. Unless you have a lot of money, like Xavier Dolan, then you can just do whatever the hell you want.
Sure.
Because you have tons of money already. But yeah. I feel like I'm rambling. But anyways, you get the picture.
Yeah, no, I agree.
You can get away with creating something incredible that an audience can react to, where it is a untested artist in that medium with total control. I mean, Get Out was a passion project. I mean, it's a case-by-case basis scenario. And so I think that they certainly can be good for the audience. Again, I just think passion is a vague term.
Yeah, go ahead.
As far as young people who, got to make a passion project that they got away with, where they had complete control, as a little fun sidestep, Citizen Kane. And largely the reason that it was unsuccessful wasn't actually because of the lack of the quality of the film, but it was because of the very, very pointed efforts of people like Louis B. Mayer and William Randolph Hearst to make the film ultimately unexhibitable, that led to its failure. Just as a little fun film history sidestep, but he was like 24, 25 when he made that film.
Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's why filmmaking will never be an objective art. It's so incredibly subjective, because it's like, what makes a director, some went to school, some didn't go to school. You can make something, you can make an Oscar nominated or festival award winning movie on an iPhone. You can, knock a screenplay out of the park on your first try. I mean, it's so subjective. You don't need a certain amount of money to do this. You don't need a certain amount of prestige to do this. I know maybe that's a little bit contrary to what I was saying before, but I think, thinking about it more, it's all incredibly subjective, and it always will be. It's a lot of just how much passion you're putting into it. Are you in the right place at the right time? Are you making your thing at the right point in history? It's just like lots of things that have to come together in filmmaking and in all art. But yeah. Passion is subjective.
No, I agree. And like talking about like directors, like Tim Burton was really young when he did like Beetlejuice and those early films, and same thing with Spielberg. I mean, he made Jaws when he was like in his mid-20s, I think.
Yeah, Wes Anderson, young guy. Kevin Smith, young man. Quentin Tarantino, young man. I mean, Steven Spielberg was a part of the group known as like, the film school brats. It was him and George Lucas and Brian De Palma and Martin Scorsese and Francis Ford Coppola. Yeah. And all young men.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, again, passion is like, those films are full of passion because, they were just starting out and they were going to do their absolute best. And not to say that they aren't doing that now or trying to, but I guess the commentary is more so like when there have been these recent projects and they say, oh, it's a passion project for David Fincher, or it's a passion project. And it's more of a news piece than just a personal feeling. And so,
passion project, now that you mention that, honestly kind of ends up being used in the same kind of way that like method actor gets used. It's this kind of weird ego inflating, we're creating prestige, kind of thing. And it's like, oh, was this person actually method acting? Is this actually a passion project? Or was this an exercise in ego? Mm-hmm. And maybe that's what makes or breaks the passion project. Is it actually a passion project, or is it an exercise in ego?
Right. I think I've talked about that on the podcast before. I have a very strong opinion about method acting. I think that if you're method acting, you're a bad actor. That's my I think that's a hot take maybe, but I think that if you have to method act, that's completely contrary to what acting is.
My wife studied acting, and she's not necessarily a method actor, and she's not necessarily a fan herself. So you're not alone.
Yeah.
You at least have one more.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anything else in particular about this topic?
No. And by the way, Mandy, is that right?
Yes,
Mandy. The boo was not about where your location is. Charleston's fine. It's more just, I'm still waiting for someone to message us from one of these far off countries that apparently we have listeners.
Yes.
I'm waiting for some coward in Berlin to finally, find the courage and email the Film Buds. I don't know if we're in Berlin or not, but
yeah, probably
one day.
What was the country we were very popular in?
Well, I mean, we were popular. I mean, Jacob, I don't know if you were on the show for this, but we've been downloaded in 69 countries since we started Film Buds. I think the highest one is Japan. I don't know if that's still the case.
Japan, you better stop playing.
Gotta step up. I would probably here. Why not? I give me a hot second and I'll pull it up and I'll see what's the.
It's a hot second. One. Is that
a? How reliable are those analytics? I mean, not getting botted or anything, are you?
There's no way to say. They could be, completely full of shit. But I have to trust them. So let's see, our top three. So US, of course, the United Kingdom is second. Singapore is third. Japan is fourth. Russia is fifth. Spain is sixth. And Germany is seventh. So there you go.
Come on, folks.
Yeah.
Do better.
I think that just shows how much of the world speaks a second language and how much we as Americans do not.
Sorry?
There's a lot of English speakers out there. I mean, maybe they're listening to the podcast and they don't speak English.
Who knows? That'd be pretty cool.
It's just on in the background.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just our voices is calming enough.
It's someone just putting it on to drown out the sound of them crying alone.
Yeah. Been there. But yeah, well, thanks again for the question, Mandy. Always feel free to reach out in whatever way. And yeah, well, again, the filmbudspodcast@gmail.com is where you can reach us at. So don't hesitate. Send a message now. So, all right, well, I guess we can end off with our picks of the week. What you guys been watching? Anything?
Jacob, you want to take it?
Well, it's funny what Paul said earlier about watching Mank and Citizen Kane together and how that's 4 hours of your day. Because the other day, 2 days ago, I woke up at like 5 a.m. Just
it's too bad.
Because. And I was sitting there and I was like, you know what? I don't have a lot of work to do today. Not really going anywhere. I was like, what do I want to do today? And I just got this wild urge. And I was like, I want to watch Lord of the Rings. I was like, you know what? I've never actually seen the extended versions of these movies.
Oh.
So I got my friend to download all 3 of them on his media server. And I went for it. And sometime around 6 p.m. I was done. And all the better for it.
Yeah.
I had a good time.
You're a better man.
so that's what I was doing on Monday.
Which is your favorite?
I don't know. I feel like I'd have to say Return of the King. But I enjoyed The Fellowship of the Ring a lot more because the last time I watched any of these movies was when I was like 10, and I was like, man, these are boring. Because I was just a completely different person back then. Yeah. And then I'm watching them all now as an adult with all of this film analysis background and film history background and knowing what I know now about like Peter Jackson and the Lord of the Rings and everything and having read them now, it was a much different experience. It was a very enjoyable experience. I was like, wow, these are like masterfully made movies that are not boring at all. I'm clinging on to every word. I'm enjoying every scene, and I'm enjoying the acting and the world building. And there's a much different experience from watching them on my DVD player at 10 years old, probably half paying attention and being like, I'd rather be playing Xbox or something. I don't know.
Sure.
So yeah,
wouldn't we all?
It was and yeah. I'm really good at just sitting and consuming content for hours on end. I know a lot of people. I think a lot of people think that if a director is going to make a movie more than like an hour and 30 minutes, that they should be sentenced to death or something. But I watched all 3 of those like 3.5 hour movies. And I watched The Irishman in a single sitting too. It just doesn't bother me.
I'm jealous, Jacob. It's a gift few have. Who's your favorite character?
I feel like I thought Legolas was super lame when I was a kid, but again, it really turned around watching these the other day, and I was like, you know what? He's a pretty cool guy.
The shield cool surfing in Two Towers. Yeah. I mean, the guy rocks. Paul, who's your favorite character?
Samwise.
Okay.
Heart and soul, the whole thing. Frodo's a fucking little idiot.
Yeah, fair enough.
He's like the Harry Potter,
No.
He's also a huge idiot.
No, Harry Potter actually did a few things useful. Frodo was fucking useless until the fucking end.
Yeah. Jacob, any other viewings for you since we saw you last?
That pretty much ate up everything. I watched Krampus again, classic Christmas / Halloween movie, Michael Dougherty. So, I enjoyed that. It's like my 4th year in a row or something viewing that movie. Other than that, no, I don't think I really watched anything. I think I probably watched like The Queen's Gambit a second time with my sister. I think that happened in the period since I last spoke to you, but yeah. So
cool. Paul, what about you, man?
Okay, so I watched the re-edit of The Godfather Part 3, The Godfather Coda, The Death of Michael Corleone. I had never seen the third Godfather at all, because everyone was like, the first two were the best. So I was like, okay. Years ago when I first watched them, I just watched the first two and I left it at that. I moved on. And so I decided to watch this re-edit without having any experience with The Godfather 3 before. And I liked it. Is it necessary? No. Does it really do anything that like The Godfather 1 and 2 don't do? No. But it wraps up the story in a fine enough way. I think that if this is his final version of what the film was supposed to be, then it's good. I'll have to go back and watch the other version to give an opinion, I guess, on how they stack up against each other. But I really liked it. And if you have seen The Godfather 3 and you hate it, I don't know, maybe it's worth a watch for you. Because also just some time away from things can make you feel differently about them as well. And in a world where third films shit the bed always,
Except
also, Citizen Kane. If you haven't watched it, go and watched it. It's one of the same writers as The Wizard of Oz. It has some of the most modern filmmaking techniques of any film made at that time. It's about 20 years ahead of its time. It has overlapping dialogue. It has long takes. It has advanced light design. And it was actually shot on a budget that most people don't realize was under $1 million. It was a pretty cheap film. And it's a remarkable bit of cinema history that if you haven't seen, it will enlighten you on how we got here.
Okay, Professor Adams.
Oh, holy shit. Sorry. Spoiler thing. By the way, random thing. Did anyone else fucking love in Mank that Bill Nye the Science Guy was Upton fucking Sinclair?
Oh, I don't think
I noticed.
I don't think I noticed either.
Okay. Bill Nye the Science Guy is Upton Sinclair, notorious journalist who wrote The Jungle, all about the horrid meatpacking conditions that then ran for office. If you notice, the first thing that triggered me was the voice, because you just see him like sort of 3/4 profile, and then you finally see him in profile. So there's a little Bill Nye the Science Guy cameo. If you haven't seen Mank and you're listening to this, I don't know what you came here for. Honestly, That's a weird pick. This is an after the movie podcast for sure. You don't watch this before. I don't know why you would.
They're desperate.
But yeah, Bill Nye the Science Guy. Sorry, that was a total random outburst. But yeah. Go and watch Citizen Kane.
Yeah. Paul, any other mentions for you? Watches?
No, I think that's pretty much it. How about you, Henry? What have you been watching?
I got a couple things. I'll mention. I rewatched Child 44 with Tom Hardy, Gary Oldman, and Noomi Rapace. And we were talking about favorite actors the other week, and Tom Hardy and Noomi Rapace are two for me. And this is a movie based off I think it's a series of novels, and it takes place in the Soviet Union, and it's about this string of child murders, and Tom Hardy is a military officer who is tasked with finding the killer. And I love, mid 20th century pieces, and so that's what drew me to the movie. And I like the movie. I want to like it more than I do. I think the biggest issue with it is the direction is just kind of sloppy. There's a lot of plot and it's not handled all that well. But I think the setting and considering the amount of like Hollywood money put into a kind of a weird one-off movie like this is kind of interesting on its own. But it's still a cool movie, and it's I really like Tom Hardy, and I really like Noomi Rapace and Gary Oldman. I mean, he's always great. And I think the reason for rewatching it is I'm listening to a biography audiobook of Stalin, which is fairly interesting. And I only have, let's see, maybe 38 hours left of part 1. So, I'm coming close to the end. But no,
how many parts is it?
There's 2 parts.
Oh, at least it's just 2.
Yes. Still, I have, I don't know, about 60 hours left. I think the book itself is like 1,100 pages, so it's fairly long. But
so this whole audiobook you're telling me is about as much time as it took for that one guy to cut off his arm in that canyon.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. James Franco. Yes.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
It is. But no, that's an interesting read. And so if you like mysteries and if you like those actors, I would give it a look at some point. It's worth watching, and it has gone up a little bit on rewatch. Like once you get a more handle on the plot, it flows a little bit better. And then I'll say I'll pull a Paul here. I've been playing a video game called Unravel.
Yeah, I've played Unravel. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's this like puzzle platform game, I guess you can call it, and it's this creature made of yarn, and it's just kind of you accomplishing objectives and kind of going across the landscape and just solving different puzzles and all that stuff. And I'm actually going to be talking to the composers in January because the score is amazing.
Have you noticed the narrative happening in the background?
Perhaps. I've only played a little bit of it so far.
Okay, there's like a loose narrative that's happening in the background of both Unravel and Unravel 2.
What's the narrative?
Well, now you got to go and play it and find out.
Yeah.
And listeners can tune in next week to find out more.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, a little teaser there.
Yeah.
But no, the game is really fun. It's a very calming, relaxing game, and I love the music, and it's one of those games that's kind of under the radar, and it's just quiet and peaceful, and it's just a cool little escapist game to play, especially with, the world that we're in right now.
Yeah.
And let's see, that might be about it.
It's amazing that it came from multi-year winning in a row worst company in America, EA.
Yeah. Hey, man.
Something, I guess something I found to be a little bit darkly humorous, I guess, I wanted to share about my Lord of the Rings watch was so they were downloaded, as I said, onto my friend's media server, which also includes like it adds a bunch of sort of other flavor information in, like it has a bunch of reviews that were written at the time of release. So Fellowship of the Ring was released in 2001, of course, December 2001, so 3 months after 9/11, and there was a review in there from some small magazine. It wasn't anything big or whatever, and they were just like, even if Fellowship of the Ring doesn't manage to save what is otherwise a disastrous year, at least we have another one to look forward to next year. And I can only imagine that was in reference to 9/11. I was like, I think this man was suggesting that the Fellowship of the Ring might repair the damage that 9/11 has done to our country.
Well, at least it worked for him.
Yeah.
At least it made him feel better about 9/11.
Yes. No, those movies for me, like, those were like my Star Wars. Those were the ones that first impacted me as in terms of like movies being more than just, entertainment. And so I don't know if they saved, I feel like they saved the country or they repaired the country, but they sure did a lot for me personally.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess there's something to be said for, like, something coming out at that time that can be entertainment and rally everyone to a common enjoyment or whatever. So
totally. Yeah. Well, all right. Well, guys, I know we're vibing right now. Is there anything else y'all want to talk about? It's up to y'all.
Nah, I think that I'm all right. I'm
okay.
I'm fried. I read a whole chapter on Citizen Kane today.
Yeah. That'll knock you out for a week.
It will.
Yeah.
Paul,
put me off reading for a little while.
Are you or are you not a fan of the MCU? I can't remember.
Me?
Yeah, you.
Oh, huge. Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Oh, good, a man of taste.
I had a heated argument with a friend of mine earlier, who I've known for years that he hates it, but we get in arguments still, and he thinks like the worst thing to happen to cinema, which of course many people share that opinion, but I sort of had to stand my ground and defend my opinion that I actually think they're worthwhile and have some very emotional themes and good storytelling, but you have to actually allow yourself to be in the headspace to realize that and not go in with all this negativity, but I could go on and on. So
no, yeah, absolutely. Just as a little random quick story, my dad recently rewatched one of the Marvel films and he was like, wow, there's so much going on.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I have to
all right, see you, Jacob.
All right, there he goes. You know what? No, that's the perfect spot.
Jacob's done. He's out.
I have to show this to Paul.
Oh, that's right.
There it is. Nice.
Yeah, Jacob has the whole series. Yeah, that's awesome.
$600. Going for about $4,000 on eBay now.
Jeez. Was that a pre-pandemic purchase, Jacob? Was that yes.
Yeah. But yeah, it's in another 10 years I can get whatever saga is next.
Who knows? Yeah, we'll keep you updated on that one. Well, I guess that about does it for the show this week. Now, next week, I know Tenet is out, but I think it might just be only available for purchase. But if y'all want to do that for next week,
I'll fucking buy it. I don't care.
Yeah. So we, that I'm down for that next week, Jacob. If you are, that would be great.
Yep.
I know friend of the show Sky, who we all went to school with, has expressed interest.
He just watched it.
I did. Yeah. I saw that he reviewed it. He's always putting out reviews, that guy. So,
Facebook reviews.
His Facebook reviews, yeah. Iconic stuff. And so, maybe look for that next week, and just stay updated on social media and thefilmbuds.com. That's where you can find out all that great stuff. And yeah, well, guys, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for taking the time. It's always nice.
Yeah, always.
Yeah. All right. Well, everybody, please stay safe. We hope you have a nice holiday season. Be smart, be safe, and rock on.
All right.
So we'll see you next time.
Have a good one, guys.
See you.